you are good to go.
All right. Call the meeting of the Parks and Trails Commission to order. So if you can join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I see we are all present. Thank you all for coming tonight on a stormy night. You guys are always here. It's good. I apologize for missing the June meeting. I was out on the West Coast and in Arizona for a family memorial service for my wife's older brother who died a year and a half ago, and we finally got to get together for him. So, yeah. Anyway, it's very nice to be back, and it's nice to see you. The agenda. Are there additions, subtractions, corrections to the agenda for tonight? Seeing none, I take a motion to approve the agenda.
A motion to approve the agenda?
And second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Minutes for the work session from June 16th, first one. Corrections, additions?
I'd like to make a note on 4A. I think we had substantial discussion about the big white, whatever that unit was going to be. What is it called?
Sports dome?
The sports dome. There was a pretty big discussion about it, so I think we should make a notation of that in the city park remaster discussion. 'Cause I think we talked about either relocating it or even completely removing that item.
That's on the work session.
Work session, yep.
I can get that added.
Okay, good. Any other corrections, additions? All right, Chair will take a motion to approve as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve as
Thank you,
amended.
Michelle. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Val. Further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Minutes for the June 16th meeting. Corrections, additions to those minutes.
8A, we have planned unity development. I think that's planned unit, but I'm not sure.
Oh, a rare typo.
I feel like I was going for 2 years without one, so it's bound to happen.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Any other corrections or additions? All right, Chair will entertain a motion to approve as corrected.
A motion?
Thank you, Phil.
Second.
Thank you, Michelle. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, Jessica, for the wonderful job with the minutes, as always.
With amendments.
With amendments, welcome to the human race. Yeah. All right, open forum.
If anyone is interested in speaking on the Zoom call, you can either press *9 or use the raised hand function. Should be good to go.
All right. Presentations, we have no presentations tonight. Unfinished business, Tavera 4th edition, the mystery item.
So I just figured I would give a verbal update after this went to council. There were some differences in what was recommended by staff to council versus your guys' recommendation, so I figured we'd walk through it. It's not a lot of differences. Big things to note, the trail was aligned to kind of hug that south border, just like you guys had requested, but the connection in between the homes, you can kind of see in the more of the northeast side, that stayed, but it kind of stops. So it's a trail into the park and then it just kind of stops. That way there's still that accessibility factor. And then the crossing is still before the parking lot through Outlot E, but it's still accessible through that corner in the southeast. And then there's 7 parking stalls instead of the 9. So I just wanted to give an update. I didn't think it needed to have an entire packet item, so I figured a verbal was probably enough. So if you guys have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer them.
Can you bring that up just one more time?
Yep.
The change was, we had originally wanted the one not to have to double cross the roads, right? So we were hoping to have it go just across one individual, like across one way.
Right, so originally it was going to be just this one, but both were approved. And then this is the, in between the homes, that connection. You guys had opted to remove that, but it stayed. And then the trail is aligned in that southern part and still does cross across Outlot E, but this provides a little more accessibility from this area as well.
And then didn't we talk about the parking lot being a little bit bigger too?
I think it was 9 spots was what you guys had requested, but
Okay.
I think part of the problem is one is a handicap spot, so that kind of takes up 2,
Yep.
which makes it tricky to have. You're gonna end up with an uneven number, so it's 7 or 9 and.
Do you need anything from us on that?
No, just, it was just to provide an update.
Thank you.
Looks good.
Yep.
All right, City Park Remaster. And we do have a packet on that, and thought I would, our goal is to, on all these things, any project that we do, our goal is to advise the city council. We don't get to actually spend the money or make the decisions. We get to recommend it to the city that we do things in a certain way, and the city council then will exercise their judgment as to what needs to happen. And so I thought that we could early on ask our 2 city council representatives what they are looking for from us, what would suit them for them to be able to bring back to the next city council meeting in terms of our update to the plans. So, gentlemen.
I'll let you go right ahead, Jeremy. I know you've got a lot of thoughts on it, so.
Sure, so
Sure.
I think the first thing I would like is to have you discuss whether these redrafts meet your expectations based on the feedback that you gave to staff and that staff gave to the engineers at Stantec. Does this actually reflect what you had intended? If there's things that were missed or we wanted to include that aren't included or changes you wanted to see made that haven't been made, let's make sure we identify those things first so we can get pricing that'll be reflective of what we actually discussed. Beyond that, I think prioritizing is probably appropriate given the scale of the cost increases. You know, one would hope that we would be able to do all of this, but it did go up by about a factor of 3. So it's not entirely guaranteed that everything that we discussed in Phase 1 would be possible to do in Phase 1. So if there are certain things that are notably expensive that are less important, we go to identify those so we know what the planning commission would like to make compromises on if compromises are necessary. Alternatively, if there are ideas that you have about ways that we could save a little bit based on design choices or other modifications, let's talk about those as well. I would also say, partnership ideas. We obviously rely on park dedication fees for most of what we're doing here. We know we're looking toward Hennepin County to provide some funding through their youth and sports grant program. If there are other sources that we should be thinking about to help put this together, let's talk about that as well. And I would also say, some specific things that might be worth discussion. Is it appropriate or required that we have a turn lane at this time? That was relatively expensive. Is it appropriate that we have, 350 or so parking spots, given the state of the current version of the park? We had talked about pickleball courts and tennis courts. Are we happy with just pickleball, the way that it's laid out? Those are a few of the more specific things that I think the commission could weigh in on. Is there anything that you would want to weigh in on that I didn't have in my list?
We'll get to that. Okay. Tom?
Yeah, and I don't have too much to add from that. Definitely the prioritization would be great to hear, and if the changes are representative of what you guys intended at the last meeting in the work session, like Jeremy said. The one specific to me that jumped out was the parking as well. I believe I remember a conversation being that we wanted some more parking closer to the park and splash pad itself. Obviously, I don't have the exact numbers in front, well, kind of in front of me, but not laid out in front of me. regarding, the extent of the added parking, if you think that's enough, too much, just kind of some specific thoughts on that, because I think if we maybe find a middle ground in there, there could be some cost savings in terms of pavement and the lighting that has to go in and all that, that kind of adds up pretty quick. But I'd love your thoughts on that and kind of everything else, Jeremy, you're pretty well.
All right, Jessica, do you have intro for us?
I do.
Okay.
What would this be if I didn't give you guys a presentation of meeting? So, in your packets, you can see the map. I did put it on 11 by 17 to try and make it as big as possible, but I wanted to give you guys the full scope. I'll zoom in a little more on the parts more specifically that we're talking about. So, the sports dome, while it's still on there, and if that's something you guys are interested in keeping, we certainly can. I know there were some mixed messages on, some people wanted to keep it, some didn't, so I had Stantec just leave it on there, focusing primarily on phase one. Oops. With that, you'll notice that there are 2 stormwater management ponds. Those are necessity because of wetlands and redirecting the water for the construction. There's 6 pickleball courts now instead of 3. The full playground, instead of doing just a third of it as proposed earlier. The splash pad is also included in there near the park. Additionally, you guys had talked about having the changing room, bathroom situation near the splash pad, which is located right above it. And in addition to that, we were kind of going off of what Rogers has recently put in. I don't know if anyone is familiar. They have, and I'll go through it a little more later, I have their rendition of it. It's a pavilion, the utility room, a bathroom changing stall situation, and then an indoor room. So the one that we're proposing would be about double the size. The reason behind that, I'll get to it later, but it would provide indoor programming as well as rental space, so a spot that could produce some revenue, both in a pavilion aspect and an indoor reservation room, which in addition to indoor programming or just private rentals, you could use it for maybe birthday parties could rent it out. It's not uncommon. The 343 parking stalls, I will note, Noah told me today actually that he was counting cars at the park. For reference, we have 250 cars that park in the big lot alone. And I will also note that a lot of them end up in the grass because the parking lot is not big enough. That being said, as Councilmember Nichols said, you guys did request additional parking up near the splash pad. If there was one that you were looking to get rid of, as far as the staff recommendation goes, I would say that southeast parking lot would probably be your best bet in doing that later, if you were really looking to get rid of one. And that's only because the future warming house would be right below it, and that's more what it would be utilized for. So if there's one that you're looking to kind of knock off, that would probably be it. In addition to the parking, you would also have the new open skate rink and the new hockey rink. I will note that many of the amenities that are at the park are getting to the end of their life. As discussed, the tennis courts, the warming house is doing better now that it has a new roof, or a repaired roof, I should say. The park is starting to get dated for sure. There are just many amenities that need some TLC at this point. So moving forward, that's something to keep in mind if you do decide to not include things in the future. Just remember that there are still going to be some costs associated with that in the near future, I would imagine. Noteworthy items, tennis would be separate from pickleball, so you'll see that pickleball is up here. If you can see my mouse, it's very hard to see, I apologize. And then this is where the basketball and tennis would be. And I do have another picture of a similar layout, so I can go through that in a second. But basketball court was added. The 31 spots intended to later service the new warming house building, so as discussed earlier. And then the trails, I had him more clearly define them and meander through the park a little more so that you can see them. They're the thicker black, or in this case, gray line. The black ones would be the ones included in phase one. The gray ones would be a later phase. The budget increases, so many of them are due to the street and parking lot extensions due to the splash pad, so extending the street that much further did cost quite a bit. Getting those parking spots, again, did cost quite a bit. The nice thing is, once it's it's good for a while, so that helps. The full playground is also a bigger cost. And then the addition of the bathroom, changing room, utility room, picnic shelter combination is also a pretty large cost. The turn lanes on County Road 50 came from the engineering side of things. They had said that Hennepin County would likely require them, so I don't know that we can necessarily get rid of them, but we thought it was important to include them on the budget, so that it's not a surprise later. And then general inflation, it has been, I think since we keep updating it, but ultimately between COVID and general inflation, everything is astronomically higher, as I'm sure you're all aware. The indirect costs, so that's that 30%, it's not just contingency, it's gonna be that street and parking lot lighting, landscaping at the park, irrigation if you guys so choose, which I would imagine, given the drought that we've had, an anomaly being this weekend apparently, when it's gonna rain the entire time. And then small park amenities, benches, bike racks, drinking fountains, Councilmember Nichols, if you will, shade structures. Moving forward though, the bathroom, changing room, picnic shelter, this is a picture of what Rogers had proposed. It's now, I believe, the splash pad is open. I would have to check on the building, but you can see we would have about double this, so it would be, as shown in this layout, it would pretty much be two of these, just shift one down. The reasoning behind that, this picnic shelter is about half the size of the current one, and with the map of the park, this map, or this layout, would not be the same size as the picnic shelter we currently have, and I know that a lot of people really like it because it is larger in size. So it can hold 100 people. With that, cutting it in half to 50 doesn't fit all of the needs of everyone, so I would recommend keeping it that bigger size, but ultimately it's up to you guys. Like I said earlier, it would allow for indoor programming, which isn't something we currently have the capacity to offer because we don't have indoor space anymore. As well as indoor and outdoor private rentals, so people could utilize the building and the pavilion. And this is kind of the layout for the tennis and basketball courts that Nick from Stantec and I had spoken about. It's at Wyndham Knoll Park in, I believe, Eden Prairie. With pickleball growing as quickly as it is, at the end of the day, it might make more sense to just have them be two separate amenities. Tennis courts do take up quite a bit of size, and so then you're either taking away from pickleball or you're taking away from tennis. The current proposed plan would only allow for one tennis court. However, tennis has been a dying sport similar to softball. So it's kind of how you guys want to proceed, but I wanted to throw this in there as an option. And this way you guys got basketball as well. And potentially foursquare and hopscotch, if that is something you're interested in. I can go back to the main layout if you guys want to work through it. I can answer any questions. Otherwise, I'm just looking for discussion. If there's any adjustments that you'd like to see made, I just need more information to go back to Stantec again and go, here's the updates one more time before we bring it back to Parks and Trails and then to council. I will shift back to this one. It's more than
Do you happen to have a copy of what we did at the work session, like with our drawings of what we did with the adjustments? Because we did, remember we did those little,
like each of yours?
yeah, like a composite of that maybe?
Give me just a second.
Just as a refresher, because it's been a while.
Well, I have each of yours. I don't have,
Okay.
so I took what you guys had said in the meeting and tried to, as accurately as I could, relay it to Nick to get the adjustments made, so. It will take me a second to track it down, though.
No worries.
Otherwise, if there's any questions, I can answer in the time being.
So the bathroom and changing area would be out, like, outside the splash pad, or?
Yes, ultimately, it'd be across the
Okay.
trail.
I still feel pretty strongly that it should be enclosed, like Delano. Because if I'm taking my kids to play at the park and trying to keep them out of an open, like, splash pad, it's difficult to do that. at Maple Grove, they have, the fountains and stuff, and it's really close to the park. And it's just kind of a nightmare to try and keep your kids on a hot summer day if you're like, don't want to bring swimsuits, or they're quick to try and keep them out of there. So I really like Delano has, as opposed to I think St. Michael and Rogers both have, to have that be like a separate thing where there's a changing area, you pay just a little bit to get in, and then it's more controlled too. You don't have random big kids running through the middle when you've got a little toddler kind of playing in the water. It gets pretty chaotic. I mean, I haven't even been there in a while because I just didn't want to go up to Maple Grove because of that. When my daughter was little, I'd wait until school was in session, it was still open, because there'd just be big kids running through, and just wasn't very much fun. So that's.
You mean like a fence around?
Yeah, so
the splash pad?
Yeah, so in Delano, you pay a couple bucks to get in, there's a fence, and it's you go into the splash pad and then, sorry,
Well,
backed up from the mic.
yeah, I know, I'm trying to stay close too. So I'm just wondering, the trail that we have going between where the bathroom and where the splash pad is, maybe you could have the trail go on the backside.
I know there were some grading concerns.
Okay.
He had a hard time fitting everything in as is.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that if the trail was gonna go in, it would likely, and this isn't set in stone necessarily, and I could talk to Nick, but I would imagine
Yeah.
it would probably have to come down
Okay.
this way and over this way instead of,
It just, I think about if someone, once the trail really starts getting used, if people are biking on it or running on it, to have a trail right in the middle of where we have a park and then a changing area is just not a good idea, it seems like.
okay.
I don't know.
Will-
I love the idea that there's a trail close by, but I just don't know if it belongs between where the changing room and the splash pad is.
Will that segment be part of the Diamond Lake Regional Trail with lots of through traffic, or is it just a spur?
The way Nick and I were talking about it, we were envisioning more this part of it to be part of the trail,
Okay.
just because it's not so through everything, it's more through the open space area, which is more Three Rivers kind of aesthetic.
Okay.
Well, when you showed the Rogers splash pad, which I think is cool, and I love the idea of having a bigger area too for the extra amenities, to be able to rent that out. I think that's a really good idea. I just don't know if I like having that trail that close, because the Rogers picture didn't look like there was a trail. It looked like it was all kind of one big unit versus having a trail run through the middle. And is there fencing, where the parking lot is and where the splash pad is? There's fencing there?
So fencing won't necessarily be shown on this, that would
Okay.
likely be included in the
Okay.
indirect costs.
Okay.
This is the big picture. and then
Sure.
We'll hone in on the smaller details once we have general amenities.
Okay.
So we just need to say we want a splash pad. We'll actually help think about what that splash pad will look like later, right?
What the splash pad will look like,
Yeah.
if you want a fence,
Fence, not
what kind of
fence, yeah,
benches,
okay.
that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So if we do the enclosed though, the one thing is we definitely want a changing room / bathroom in the splash pad. Would that change any of the design up there?
So if it would be a separate building than the one that's just north of the park or the playground and the splash pad, you're gonna have the additional costs, which isn't gonna be ideal, especially when we're already sitting kinda higher. An option could be, I can see if Nick can make the adjustment to move the trail either north or south, and then you can have that bathroom, changing room and everything kinda closer, similar to Rogers, or is that totally off the table for you guys?
Well, like I said, I really like the way the Delano has it set up, because there's just a changing room, it's more controlled, it's enclosed, you're not trying to pull your kid from from going into the water and stuff, and so I prefer, as a parent, I prefer that concept better. And if that is the case, if it is enclosed, then we definitely need a bathroom, because little kids often don't tell you they need to go until they need to go. Not that I would know about that right now. So yeah, just for me, that would be important to have in there too.
So what I'm hearing is kind of two separate buildings then. Or are we
Unless,
saying nix
Couldn't-
the,
Couldn't we just have it, like you're saying, so they're basically one and the
on
same?
the back side.
But then have an entrance that's not fenced in for the general public to
Right.
use if you don't pay the $2 or whatever it is to get in.
Yeah.
So like one that faces into the splash pad
Yeah,
and then
but
one
then-
that's on the outside, yeah.
Right, because there's also a picnic room and a,
Yeah.
utility room we don't need, but there is a indoor space or whatever
Mm-hmm.
we can
Yeah.
rent too, so you don't have to go through the splash pad to get there. We
Yeah.
just have a separate entrance.
Yeah.
They would all share the same.
Utility, yeah.
Exactly.
so just more private bathrooms
Yeah, I don't
specific
think,
to the
not a
splash pad?
separate
Not a separate
building.
building.
Okay.
Yeah, if we could, like you said, kind of squish those more
Yeah.
together and have the trail.
And sometimes it's deceiving, like when you see something so big like that, but like I would, if my kids were little, I'd be really concerned about having a parking lot that close to the splash pad, but maybe that's just like maybe there's a big green space between where the,
There could be
okay,
some offset, and if
Yeah.
we're including a fence, I would.
Yeah,
think
Yeah.
with the
it's less
fence,
concerning.
okay.
yeah, the fences, we fence it in.
Unless your kids are ninjas. They really like parkour.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Val and Judy, do you have thoughts? Or what are your thoughts?
No, I agree. You know, if you have the separate entrances, it'd be fine. And if you like a fence, go for it.
I do.
You're the expert on that one.
A little bit right now, yeah. And then that, it also, you can rent it out for birthdays too, like they have hours in Delano where like in the morning, that's just for rentals. So you're not closing it randomly in the middle of the day, but you can rent it out. Like my daughter went to a birthday party there one Saturday before it opened, and they had rented it out, and it was fun. It's a great option, I think, especially if you want to have a get-together or a party or something, and the fees seemed pretty reasonable to me when you look at different other places that you rent. So I thought that would be a nice option to have in this community too, just a little bit more of that where you can gather. I had a comment about funding for the park. I was poking around on Landscape Structures website, because we're in the Delano district, so we know all about landscape structures. And they don't do grants themselves, but like if you fill out a form, I think they try and help you find grants, it maybe looks like. So maybe, I didn't feel like I was in a place where I should be doing that since I'm not staff or whatever. But that is something I saw in there that maybe that would help us find something, so.
Awesome.
Since we're talking about financing, I know I've mentioned it before, but a possibility of a bond issuance. So I don't know if that's been talked about at council yet.
yet.
But there's got to be cost savings by doing more ahead of time, all at once, right? And we have $3 million in the bank, more or less, right? We can't use it all. But that's a good amount of money, and if that has to support a bond issuance, I know interest rates have gone up, but they're still relatively low, historically speaking. So if that's something, I don't think that's necessarily something we would get into, but if it's an option, it'd be good to know, because then it'll help us make decisions on what we think we can go forward with, or what we should remove or add in, right? So if we can get any color around that, that would help a lot.
And I think one thing we're going to have to figure out here relatively shortly is what all we're bonding for in this upcoming year. It could be pretty substantial with some other projects going on. So I think once we maybe have a little bit better sense on that, we'll know how feasible that is. What do you think, Jessica?
Yes. Yep. Thank you, commission members. I would note that we're working on our 2023 bond schedule, and we're preparing our financial management plan over the next, we're hoping to present it to council in October. And we do have several items. One of the items I had them plan for is some small amount of funding for this, but now that we have more updated numbers, we definitely want to consider that. I would note that that's, would have to be general levy funded, and we'd have to look at how long we could space those out. But there is not not direct authority to issue bonds for park projects. We can do it. There's a way to do it. It's a bit of a process to do it, but that's something that we can certainly look at as we explore how to do the bond issuance that we're coming up.
Yeah,
on.
that'd be great. We can get that as a discussion item when you're doing those 2023 bonding discussions. Especially if, I mean, inflation, we're up 30%, right? If that's persistent at all, we could see another big increase like this the next year and the year after that. I don't think it'll continue for years, but we could be seeing that, and so we could actually be saving money by doing more upfront, a lot of money. So something, if we can get more color on it, that would help, I think, our general discussions too.
And I think we had talked about too, of maybe getting an estimate of what additional park dedication fees might be coming in with the new developments, to give us a better idea of what we might need to bond for, too.
Yeah, we can certainly, we have an estimate of what park dedication might look like through the end of the year. I would note that we're working on updating our park dedication fees with these numbers as we got them on Thursday. We're in earnest looking at all of our fees. So that will be an important piece as we look to the end of the year and what else is coming in.
Yeah, because that might help us understand then what we have to like work with as far as what we would really want from, like what we'd want to present to council as a commission too, I think, and what's most important to prioritize things.
Do we have an idea what rates are too, for potential when we issue bonds in 2023? Like, what's the current rate for our,
That's a good question.
Our
I don't
bonds.
know off the top of my head. I could look at what we issued for in April, but I think that it's probably changed pretty significantly from April. I don't know.
okay, that's fine.
And Commissioner Friedrich, I did find yours just happens to be first. I recognize the handwriting. So that is yours. If anyone wants to lay claim to the other ones, I don't know your guys' handwriting as familiar, but there's another one. So I tried to highlight in speaking with Nick, not necessarily the ones and twos, but the general consensus that was come. So, example, the sports dome wasn't always crossed out on everyone, so that was something that I left. However, a very common thing was the winding trails around the parks. The parking was a big one. We did adjust the parking lot. I don't know if you guys noticed.
I saw
In
that.
and out.
Yep.
Got adjusted.
Yes, I looked for that right
So
away.
that was a good catch on your guys' part. The basketball court got added because that was more common. Bathroom needed sooner, basketball court. Sharon, I think.
That was mine.
Uh-huh.
It's a little simple.
I want to say this might be Tom.
So are those trails?
Not here.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
sorry.
That might be Phil's.
That one?
No,
That
it's
is mine, yes. Good penmanship. The trails, so a couple of these maps have had different trails, and I don't think they're reflected in here. Is that just, would that be in those extra items for additional trails? Because we have them winding all through here, but they're not on the west side necessarily on this current map.
Let me switch back to the,
Because this little island in the southwest, I think that was supposed to be like an archery range potentially or something.
The archery range was over by the, give me 1 second to get back to the PowerPoint. The archery range, I don't think
It was just south of the dome, wasn't
is
it?
shown, yeah.
Okay, but we did have trails going to that little green island there on the west.
One, right,
Yeah,
yes. And it looks like a trail does come to it, so we can update it to get trails added in.
yeah, something that kind of winds through the forest there. I think.
Yeah, would be really
We
pretty.
were all kind of in agreement on that. More trails would be
Yep,
nicer.
So more trails on the west side?
yep.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I wonder if the Three Rivers Park District might be willing to partner on some of those trails, since it will be part of the master planned regional trail. If they would appreciate it going through that forested area on the west and then come back down along the county road before it goes over.
It is certainly worth an ask, yeah.
Did we want to switch back to your guys' drawings?
Sure, sounds good.
So basketball and tennis, full playground, large bathroom, bad angle for parking. More trees around structures. The landscaping wasn't very prominently shown in this, mostly because Nick is not a landscape architect. So he just was trying to give the general, here's the amenities. We were coming in kind of hot with this report, so that was also part of it. As said, it came in on Thursday, and I'm writing my report Thursday night and then into the weekend. So I appreciate your guys' patience on the packet this time. It did take a little longer than normal. August is the busiest month. Bathroom and splash pad, fenced-in splash pad, which wouldn't necessarily be shown. Sledding hill.
I see 4 X's on the sports arena, just FYI.
well, that's not in the current budget though. is it?
Right,
I didn't-
right,
so-
right,
So
yeah.
we have that empty space.
Yes, yes,
It's just something that's there for now,
right.
right?
Parking, bathrooms, big thing, sports dome. Bathroom, playground all at once, more pickleball, if you can see right there.
Yep.
And that would be all of them. If there's any you guys want me to, excuse me, switch back to,
I
certainly
think a
can.
few of them had referenced switching the northern parking lots there with so that they were on the street side and that the youth soccer was
Up here.
more in the
Oh,
park,
yeah,
yeah.
we did talk about that, yep.
But none of that will
Yeah,
happen in
that's a good
phase one, right?
Right, right.
Correct, and I will note that with every change, it's additional time that we get charged.
That's what I'm thinking. We're using our budget, keep meeting with the planner.
How
That's not a
much
good
is it to
idea.
rerun this? So it's a stand check charge.
I don't know offhand.
Okay.
Council just approved $7,500 to go back and have them update the plans.
One more time.
That was for this last time and then this next time as well, so it should all be within budget. I don't think that we would go over.
Okay. I mean, I would.
Nick is very quick, I will say
Yeah.
that. We are
Yeah.
lucky to have him around.
I would rather have it be correct, though. I mean, I know it's costs money, but it'd be
It's
good
a
to make
small
sure that we
cost in
have
the
it,
grand
yeah,
scheme of things.
before we put in a big parking lot or something.
Sharon, thoughts?
Jessica, you mentioned the 31 spot area might be something that could be taken out for a savings, or did I mishear that?
That is what I said. This part right
Yeah.
here is kind of where I'm talking about. Ultimately, we would have the parking for the ice rinks and warming house because this would remain untouched. So it's certainly an option,
What
Okay,
portion?
I would imagine.
What's existing already for, is that what you said?
Yes,
What's-
correct.
What's there
Yep,
already
so-
for the hockey? and-
Yes.
Okay,
This dirt lot,
gotcha.
class 5.
Like for savings, I don't know if it's even an option, but like, how much is paving? Because it's like, if we don't have a huge budget and paving is a lot, could we just do a Class 5 parking lot?
You will not, and I guarantee it, get 250 spots out of that parking lot if you leave it as Class 5.
Okay.
People already struggle to park out there. So, like I said, they're parking in the grass, and
I know.
when they park in the grass, it's just.
I'm just following the non-pave feature, that we have going in Corcoran. We have all those dirt roads too.
Well, people are kind of used to it anyway.
Not being able to
I love
paint
paved roads
lines.
out here.
That's-
Well, correct.
Yeah.
And while the cost of painting lines would be substantially less, I don't know. Lining that
nightmare.
parking lot would be a nightmare. So the best way to get essentially all the spots that you can would be through paving it. And
Which
as
I
Phil
get,
said,
yeah.
paving is just going to get more expensive, more than likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the right amount of spots, we think? That's in Stan Tech's opinion?
Yes. And I would argue that considering we have 250 cars in a parking lot every Tuesday and Thursday, I mean, even baseball, that parking lot gets pretty jam-packed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have driven by there, it is
Parking in the grass, yeah.
chaos, organized chaos.
And it's been like that since, like, even my kids were little. It's been parking in the grass, yep.
Well, since I missed the last meeting, sure. The sequence of events would be, if all goes well, we would start construction a year from now?
Ideally, 2023 was the timeline.
Okay.
Now, with bonding and everything.
Yep. I'm-
And getting the remaining funding, that's where things would start to get hung up. The application for the Hennepin County Youth Sports Grant would be this fall for the $300,000 that we would ask for. Now, that's not a guaranteed 300,000, but I would like to say I'm batting,
You're
I think, 1,000, I do say so myself, on the Hennepin County Youth Sports Grant, but that is in $10,000 increments, not a much larger scale. I would have to look into it, and I'm not super confident that it's an option, but I do know they have a playground grant as well. I think you can ask for up to 100 or 150,000, which would be helpful. However, it's the same group, it's still the Hennepin County Youth Sports Grant, and I don't know if you can go for both a large project like this for the 300,000 as well as the playground. I also subscribe to a lot of grant emails when they send out, hey, this is a new grant that's coming out, and I try and make sure that we're not eligible for any of them before I go, oh, delete, that's just trash. But, I mean, I'm watching for them, I'm trying to come up with other organizations too, but if you guys have any, definitely send them my way. I'll look into the one from Landscape Structures. I think the only downfall with that would be we would probably be committed to landscape structures at that point, and I don't know how that works with going out for bid, especially with a project this size.
So I looked it up, and as best I can tell, the proper alignment of a baseball field is a line running from home plate to the deepest center field would run from southwest to northeast. And so the pony field is the proper field in the proper direction. Up in it's the one in the upper right side. And the reason for that is that you want the batter to not have to look into the sun during the day. So if you're, the senior league, yes, the batter has to look into the sun, right, as it is right now.
Okay.
So the Southeast Little League one would likely be okay.
That should be, and it's also, it's also Little League, so, nobody sees the ball anyway, so it doesn't matter if the sun's in there. So that, but anyway, that's what I read about. And I think I believe that.
The only concern I would have with shifting the fields is if you turn the senior league, you're
it's
gonna
a-
have
it's-
people batting into another field.
It's a whole nother, yep, but that was the answer to that question that popped up. As I looked at this site again, I was reminded that there is substantial wetland in this. The creek runs right through there, and which is both, is one of those two-edged swords. It's really lovely. This should be a really nice park, having some really nice natural areas, but it does really limit the way that we put fields in there and squeeze them in. And so that getting the sports dome over on the corner. Boy, it's just sort of a result of the topography of the site. And you can do, you can mess with wetlands, but boy, it's expensive and it is just, it's just really hard. One thing that, well, actually two things. Just north of the pickleball courts is a private lot. It's an acre, almost 2 acres. And it's the gentleman that has the "this is not a turnaround" sign in his driveway. And, I bring this up from time to time. I don't know why that lot is there, at the edge of City Park. I think we want it back. And he's an older gentleman. When that house comes for sale, we ought to buy it, and get that property back. It's not going to be much fun to live there when you've got 6 pickleball courts with screaming 70-year-olds out there. Frankly, it will be, and then the splash pad right next door.
Yeah.
I think it would serve the community well to get the, and then north of there is a half-acre site that Greg Ebert owns. That would be
Donate it.
worth achieving, worth going after too, just to kind of finish that up, to get that property, get the configuration of the park to match kind of the land that it's on. Back to as we move through this, it looks like we would lose the playground for at least a season?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, can we, would the scheduling of stuff allow for full baseball, soccer, softball for the season when those fields are being rebuilt, or would we have to cut back for a year?
We would likely have to cut back. The
Okay.
nice thing about T-ball and coach pitch, we are one of few organizations that have those teeny tiny little fields, which is wonderful, and it's sad to see them go. However, you can play T-ball and coach pitch in the grass. It's not necessarily uncommon. I've also been contemplating other ways that we could get them even on the diamonds, and just maybe have 2 per diamond and have it kind of start out further out in the infield, and maybe 2 going this way. I think we have options. It will probably require that we scale back our usage of the fields a little more and how much we can offer for at least a season. The nice thing is we do team up with Hanover and Rockford, so we could maybe try and rely a little more heavily on them. I know that in previous years, we use a lot of our fields because we have had majority of the teams in the league. However, I know that Hanover, while we use their elementary school as the location for machine pitch, it's possible that maybe we could use their larger complex instead. So I could talk to them about it. I generally meet with them once during the winter to discuss what the future season is going to look like. And depending on where we get to with this, I was going to talk to them about something along those lines. They're usually pretty accommodating, though.
So, thank you. Are the basketball and tennis courts, are those really part of Phase 1?
No.
No, okay. So that would be on our drawing, but we would not be, that's not included in the funds that we're looking for this time around.
Correct. So anything that's in color
Yep.
or the darker black for the trail would be Phase 1, and then the grayed out is not part
Is
of
not,
Phase 1.
is not Phase 1.
And I will note, I mean, the tennis courts as is aren't used
Really
super
used.
heavy because
They'd be so
of
bad.
previous discussions, but I would say it wouldn't be a major loss as far as current park usage. It'd be nice to get the pickleball, I think. I think people would really utilize it. So,
How much is the paving of the, I mean, because if this is what we're getting for Phase 1 for $3 million, is that what you're saying? That's what we're getting for $3 million, the colored spots?
7.144 million.
So
For just that
how much
part right
is the
there.
Phase 1? We don't have that breakout, do we?
Phase 1 is 7.14. It should be in your packet.
Okay, but
Oh,
is that is that Phase 1, the colored parts? So that's $7.4 million.
7.144.
Okay.
So in that, we had 1.5 million added for the utility room changing room, we didn't have any building or utilities for the splash pad in the prior plan?
I think it was supposed to be included in the cost of the splash pad. However, the $100,000 that was proposed in the very beginning, I don't think is an accurate number, to be totally fair.
Okay, so
And
this
then it
was
was
missed.
proposed at 250, which would still get you a less exciting splash pad, but a splash pad nonetheless. The 450 seems a lot more realistic to me. The utility room would help offset, I would imagine, some of the cost of the splash pad. But does
Okay.
that help answer the question at all? No.
I mean, it seems like it was missed last time, or at least part of the cost was, the last
I
time
would
they
tend
did
to
this.
agree.
And then, the other one is the $450 turn lane improvement, that's a new development that we found out we need to have.
Yes, I believe that comes with the additional parking and the road being extended from the conversation I had with staff at Stantec. It was brought up by our Public Works Director, hey, by the way, you might need a turn lane, have you thought about that?
Oh, but it would go on, Southern Road here?
It would
That's-
go on
Okay, so,
County Road.
yeah, so we didn't have that last time either.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
So my feelings are that, that 31 spot parking lot, if we lose it, we lose it, and that would not be my top priority by any means. Everything else, I think, it's sort of what we need to upgrade the park. My sense would be that there would be a substantial pause in park redevelopment when this is done. We may not go to phase 2 for 10 years.
Right.
It is maintaining what we've got, it is upgrading the facility, upgrading the splash pad, upgrading, current with pickle courts, my goodness, how current can we get? We may want to actually add those trails, that would be one thing which might pop up sooner. But the discussion that we had, that you guys had, which was really good about the sports dome and about the other soccer fields, I think that's not imminent.
I agree. I think that the things that we're prioritizing are things that people get excited about. When you talk to anybody, not even people from Corcoran, they're like, you're gonna have a splash pad? That's so great. And then the pickleball, of course, that's gonna be a big
huge.
hit. So I think,
And parking.
yeah.
And parking, and real,
dude.
and real
Line
parking.
And hockey rinks.
Boards are looking a little, they're getting to a point where we're gonna have to replace them.
We are continuing that. I think that's really important for Corcoran, is the tradition of the skating rink is, boy, people talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
I remember doing that as a kid. I remember going ice skating too, just not here. I will say that when I'm looking at the budget, I'll say more, I'm not done yet. Turning the page,
I always add more parking later.
kind of the first thing that I looked at
There's so much.
was clear and grub 28 trees. I can hear next door now. The whine, the people will be really upset the day they see those trees come out. It'll be a big deal, because people don't like to have trees cut down. And they'll be taken out, and the root balls will be pulled out, and will be a major disruption. So that in the scheduling of things, if we can get our landscape plan in place so that the new trees are in before the old trees come out, I think, we need to be able to answer that question, why are you taking the trees out? Well, with something other than sort of waving our hands at it. And to do a really nice social media announcement, really work our way into that so that fewer people are caught unawares. They will be anyway, I suppose. It's just sort of the way that things work. But, this is a big deal, and big deals always have a downside. And one is the money, and the other stuff is things like taking out 28 trees. And if people see us take down the hockey boards before there's a sign saying the new hockey rink is going here, then we have to answer that question many times. So it's a chance for us to kind of do that city city good neighbor kind of thing.
I have one more question. So, I know we need to keep the road that extends up to like where the pickleballs and stuff are, because that's an access point for people to get to those amenities. But if we're doing things in phases, what if we took out the 31 spots and the other this long skinny parking spots, and put that into the next phase, and just included that big square phase with access trails up to the amenities? How much would that save us?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I will note that you guys specifically requested that the parking get extended because it was hard to bring children up that way. And then a good portion of people who would use the pickleball courts could be elderly. So it's, I mean, obviously they're active enough to be playing pickleball.
Yeah.
But also kind of that give and take.
No, and I agree, but since we're trying to do things in phases and get the most bang out of what our monies are, there's still trails that you can access, and really the bottom of that parking lot is kitty corner right from that other parking lot. And I just think about like what we have now, where you park to get to any of the parks, you're walking a distance to get there already.
That's why you go to the park to walk.
Well, there's that too. But if we're trying to like save dollars, I'm just trying to think of different ways that we could do that. Since there would be a trail there anyways, most likely if you're bringing your kids, you would bring little strollers and things anyways, if you're going to the park. I don't know.
That one I would look for a consensus on before I take out that many parking spots.
You're thinking of the 62 spots.
Keeping in mind
Yeah.
it will likely be much more expensive to pave that later.
I think getting rid of the 31 spots, the south lot there in the middle, that makes a lot of sense. But the one along the edge there, that kind of services the whole park.
Up
area
above there.
And what is what's the threshold for getting rid of the 31 spots? I mean, if it's $100,000 to do the 31 spots, is that worth it to you guys? If it's 500,000, that's where we're cutting it off? I mean,
Well,
what's
like,
kind of the,
that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out, is like how much is the parking lot spaces? Like, how much money is that compared to the splash pad and the pickleballs and those other things? Is it like $6 million for the paving part and the turn lane, and 400,000 or 500,000 for the splash pad and everything else? Because then it might make a
Yeah,
difference.
you know what would be great, is if on this map, they could say what each area costs, right? Okay, splash pad, well,
Including
Like-
all these
grading
costs
and
are
all
kinda
that in the
split
cost,
out,
you mean?
right? Everything's kind of spread out by
Yeah.
grading, sewer, water main. It'd be nice to have it by project, because then we could take out parking and add another hockey rink
Or something, or make a bigger amenity center off of the splash pad. or something.
Since they're gonna look at it again anyways, they can.
I don't think they'll put it
categorize.
directly onto the
Well,
map, otherwise
but
that's.
Yeah, you
a
get
lot
what I'm
of
saying though,
text.
like per project, if we could just break out the costs a
Like in
little differently.
sections, Yeah.
So, this isn't gonna be probably the most accurate, but the cost of the parking lots total are $394,000. With that, you're getting 343 parking spots. Approximately $1,148 per parking spot if you divide it out that way. Now, is that 100% accurate? Probably not,
It's probably
but.
pretty close.
So, if you took out the 31, $35,000 is what you're saving. Is that worth it in the grand
Right.
scheme of things? In a $7.144 million project? That's up to you guys.
Well, and sometimes when they have the equipment and all that there, it is not
Starting to come
helpful,
back in.
yeah.
Right.
When they do it later, yeah.
Yep.
It might be worth asking the question, keep the parking areas, but if the street isn't extended, and we don't really consider it to be a street yet, does that help with not needing a turn lane? In other words, if turning in, you're just going into a parking lot that has kind of this elongated L shape, backwards L shape, does that change the requirements in a way that helps the project be more budget-friendly?
Isn't that a safety issue though, turn lane?
Oh, yeah, But it
For an
depends what the county
event.
rules are.
It might be based on parking, because
Parking.
I would imagine once you hit a certain threshold, you're expecting that amount of people. And so to get in and out of the park with that many people is probably what the county.
Which is probably why it's gravel right now.
Mr. Chairman, can I throw something at you before?
Sure.
Oh, just say my name.
Yeah, introduce
Name
yourself.
and
first.
address.
Yeah.
Bob Sullivan, Jack Pine Lane in Corcoran. 7640? So anyway, I've been cutting across Highway 10 by the self-storage unit. So we walk around the neighborhood, walk across the street, country days, cheap tickets, you know. And to get across that street, there's a turn lane, so now it's like 3.5 lanes wide. If you're going across the street and somebody comes around the curve at 60, you get maybe 15 seconds. So if you hustle, it's not a problem, but there's people crossing that. And with the houses going in, I was in the models last week. I don't know how many houses and families are going to be across the street there. So consider people crossing, pedestrians, forget the cars. And I mean, so think about pedestrian safety and small bicycle safety, not even big bicycle as an issue, coming across that street. So maybe we get 60 cars, but think about the other people coming across too. I mean, that's a big picture question.
It's a big,
Yeah.
Thanks for your consideration.
thank you. We rarely get guests, so this is kind of pretty exciting, yeah.
Another thing to note, I believe the Diamond Lake Regional Trail is proposed to be through here and into the industrial area to the south. That sounds correct, so the turn lane might be beneficial there too, given especially his comment about pedestrian safety. Because that will be a regional trail, so it's gonna draw in even more people.
Will they do a bridge
I was just going to ask that.
Or tunnel.
or a tunnel?
That's $2 million.
For Three Rivers.
3 years.
Right.
Yeah,
Who's got
it's
the-
not our concern.
So I'm looking at some of the, we have a whole bunch of items on here where the quantity is 0. Lines, 5 through 11 and 21 and 23 and parking lot lights, street lights. And some of them are, is that because we don't know how many we will need, or because we don't think we'll need any? But if we do, we need this much money?
So in the 30% indirect cost,
Okay.
that's where your lights are gonna come into play.
Okay.
And then also the landscaping, so if that's one of the zeros, you said 1 through 5, 3 through 11?
Yeah, it's, I don't,
I think it was 4 through 11. We're all zeros for quantity.
yeah,
5 through 11.
yeah, 4 remove pavilion. I don't see a landscaping.
Correct, because that's included in the 30% indirect cost.
Okay,
I can go back to the list
yep,
of.
okay.
So the indirect cost would be the street and parking lot lighting, the landscaping, irrigation, small parking.
Okay, and it also includes salvage and reinstall the drain tile, because that's got a quantity of 0 on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would likely include, not really landscaping, but more so.
Okay,
that I would
all right,
imagine
okay.
would be included in there.
So Jess, do the 30% indirect cost, do we get like more of a firm estimate then once we get to that stage? Because how can you determine that that's what it's going to be based off of what?
So generally, when there are construction projects, you have some additional room for different things, like additional, if there's additional engineering costs, or that's a placeholder to ensure that you have some funds for those unknowns when you walk into a project.
Okay.
So permitting was also included
Permitting.
in there. I didn't give you a full exhaustive list.
No,
but-
but that's what I'm wondering then. So like when we get closer to that stage, would then we get like a more firm estimate of what the landscaping would look like?
I would imagine it would stay as a percentage.
Okay. So we don't,
Because you don't, it's the unknown. So
Okay.
you can't really place a whole lot of, this is the firm price on it. So this would, I would imagine, be the firm price-ish, once we get honed in on any adjustments you guys have. Does that make sense?
Likely, there would need to be a landscape plan that would be done with it. with
Okay.
I would anticipate some sort of landscape plan.
Because I'm not sure I'd be comfortable approving, like, without having any idea of what that plan would look like. Like, if we're going to approve that if we're agreeing to that 7.1, I guess I would want to see more information about what that 30% is, because that's a ton of money. That's like half of what our budget is right now.
So none of this has been quoted out yet, right? There's
Correct,
been
these
no
aren't
bids.
construction
So this is
documents,
just
Okay.
plans. This
general-
is just concept plans.
Eventually,
it.
we would get those numbers, I would
Okay.
imagine.
Got it.
Actual bids and,
Okay.
Like, the playground, I think, is quoted at 450,
Yeah,
but we don't have bids for them. So
Okay.
it could be less,
could be more.
it could also be more.
And any building, any project will always have a certain percentage, simply because you dig a hole and,
Yeah.
my goodness, well,
What's in it?
that's, yeah, what's in it? What's in that hole? And you just need to put some money aside. Oftentimes for a building, it's 10%.
Yeah.
But this is.
Which I totally get, but
Yeah.
I feel like landscaping is something that you could probably get.
And
I just-
we will probably have to jockey all
I don't
those.
think he's spending time on the landscaping until we get,
No, that's.
grand scheme.
Yes, no, I know, I realize that. I'm just asking that question because I didn't really understand what that encompassed. So when you said it was landscaping and maybe like the lights and stuff, I'm like, well, wouldn't we know what that would be though before we get to that point?
yes, but we're not at that point yet.
Okay. All right,
this is Stantec just giving us an idea of what they think it might, an educated guess at what it might cost.
okay,
Then we get bids later.
okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If we think this is going to be sufficient for a decade,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the commission wants to discuss, I see we also have a zero next to the volleyball court, and the cost there is relatively low, 6,500 for volleyball court. Maybe that's something we would want to include in this phase because it's so inexpensive and it kind of has a nice synergy with the
That's my next point.
replaced pavilion. And maybe the basketball court or tennis court as well. Do you want to discuss whether it makes sense to try to fold that in?
Yeah, I was actually going to say that too. One other thing, so but what we should look at is what can we potentially add into phase one and then maybe take out. But I like the volleyball court, $6,500, drop in the bucket, but it's a lot of use, right, that people could get out of it. It looks nice too. One other thing we could consider is the trails running through the park. Now, I don't know what is built in for the trails right now. I couldn't necessarily see that in the budget number. But we would get a whole lot of use out of this park if we can at least put trails through it, which might be a relatively low-cost option. But now we could use the whole west side when it would be completely empty, or not empty, but we can't do anything with it until maybe 10, 15 years down the road.
When you say the trails, are you talking the ones that are,
The ones that I drew
Black?
on my map last time.
Exactly there.
Basically, just
Phil's
something on the
trail.
west side that would go through this nice treed area, which would provide a nice walk and give us access to that side.
Did
Oh,
we
yeah,
decide
that
this one
looks
was
good
you?
right there, yeah. We did that one. So something like
so
that. So if
specifically
we-
where those are located? We'll get GIS out there.
Yeah. If we could get idea, well, one, when they relook at this, it'd be nice to have that in here. But then if we can know the cost of that, well, I might be willing to sacrifice $35,000 parking lot to get half that done or something.
So are you talking the trails more on the west side? Because I will note that that northwest portion, I believe, is mostly trees right now.
Yeah, but that's why it would make a good trail.
Well, and
Yeah,
you're taking out the trees too, so there's the cost associated with that.
Right, so, I mean.
talking bitumen,
I
is that
probably
gonna be
don't
an
know, but
additional cost?
that is a big cost, is what you're saying. Okay.
what if we didn't do bituminous? What if we did just like, I don't know, shredded tree or
Mulch.
something, or mulch?
Keep in mind the maintenance that's required with it and the maintenance cost that would be associated with it as well.
I mean, there's maintenance for both options. I think if you're looking at trying to do the least expensive method,
How's the maintenance of those trails paid for?
Not park dedication.
Okay,
It can't
Be all
be.
budgeted.
okay.
yeah.
It all has to be part of the city's
Okay.
budget for trail maintenance.
And just to be fair, if we, with this improvement, if we've got changing rooms and all, we're going to have increased staff costs because that's going to have to be staffed and additional security and all sorts of things, so it comes around every year in the budget, yeah.
Yep.
But it's cost of having a city, yeah.
Hopefully the rental will help pay for some of that.
All right, I'm feeling the need to wrap this up. Further comments?
Do you mind if I just go through kind of the
Please.
adjustments so that I am
Please,
as clear as
please,
possible and I can move
please,
forward?
Please do.
So let's start with no trail between the splash pad and the bathroom changing room. You either want it north or south of those amenities and kind of better connected. Same building for, and this won't necessarily be reflected in the plan, but just let I have it moving forward. Same building for the bathrooms and everything, but just kind of more private entrances specific to the splash pad for bathrooms and changing rooms. More trails shown on the west side. Do you guys want that updated in this next? I'm trying to get the big map, there we go. So the one going through, I'm just gonna call it the Green Island, and up towards that northwest corner. So have those get reflected.
Yeah, like, and more organic versus like squares, like 90-degree angles. I think we have the opportunity to do some really cool things with what we have for space. Kind of like on the, you know, yeah, kind of like it, you know, it kind of moves around on the east side.
Yeah, you could almost go up there and just draw some nice meandering lines.
If you
Yeah.
want the truthful answer, I would imagine he was a little more meticulous on the east side because that's more where you guys are looking. Like I said, we were working kind of with a deadline going,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
gotta get this out.
Yes.
So more trails on the west side. Parking lot and soccer switch on that northeast-ish side. Buying the lot off of County Road 10. Get rid of the 31 parking lot. Is that,
I think that was in lieu of replacing it with the basketball court and the volleyball.
Yeah, that's,
If that was, like, if the cost was, you know,
relatively?
right, we would
similar?
rather have the actual amenity versus parking lot.
Okay. Keeping in mind that you'd be losing those parking spots that would then be located right next to that amenity.
Yep.
We're all good with that.
if you have to be able to walk that 100 yards to play basketball, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's that trail piece, right?
Yeah,
So that would,
More parking
Oh.
later,
yeah,
east and the west.
yep.
Okay. Having a landscape plan, looking at if the street can be cut back at all to eliminate the need for a turn lane. I can figure out what exactly is the requirement for needing that turn lane. Excuse me. Bringing back in the volleyball into phase one as well as the tennis and basketball courts. Or at least getting an estimate on it.
Yeah, getting some of those low-hanging fruit, low-cost, high-use
Yeah.
items.
You'll probably
So-
get more people on your side if you have more amenities, to be totally honest. And more organic trails, less 90-degree angles.
Here we go.
Okay, I will bring that back to Stan Tech, and then in September, I will provide you guys with a more updated plan.
So now does city council look at this plan between now and September?
I think in September, right?
It would be
Yeah.
after the Parks and Trails.
Generally,
It'd be after-
September.
Yep.
We
Is the
do a
plan.
final.
So we get one more go round on this, and then you guys will
For
do
the
this.
second September meeting, yeah.
Okay.
Right? I
Correct.
thought so, but you
Like-
gave me a second.
Yeah.
That was when
Yeah.
it was scheduled.
Yep.
I think that's what it is, yeah.
Parks and Trails the first week, and then Nick and I quick work to get everything turned around for the next meeting, which is
On
gonna be
Friday.
really tight. Yep.
I think it would be helpful too if we could feel out Three Rivers on the bridges for where the trail would cross the county road, because they talked about that when they presented their master plan to us. They would try to use off-grade crossings wherever possible, because if they are doing that, that might affect how the trails have to be oriented based upon topography. And then their preferred route through the park, and if they're willing to entertain going along that western side to make it more scenic, and what costs they would cover.
I can definitely reach out to Marge Beard about that. I don't know if they're gonna have, like, decisions, but I can float the ideas out to her.
They're also waiting on us for the cooperative agreement. It went through me and then our attorney, so I have to touch base with him on that. But I know that they are only willing to accept trails and to help pay for the trails when there's a certain amount of trail, and I don't remember what that monetary number, or that number was, but I know it was relatively substantial, so I'm not sure that this would meet that threshold.
Depending on the route.
Valid. But it also does connect into Rush Creek, so that could play into it. I mean, if we could get the Rush Creek connection through the park, that might be enough. But without it connecting anywhere else, and it's just kind of dead ends on either side, we have to meet, I think it was,
It was a maintenance piece that they would, or
yes.
accepting it as maintenance, that they needed the threshold.
right, but they didn't want to accept it even if
Yeah.
it didn't meet that threshold, so.
There's the industrial segment to the south too, potentially.
So, I mean, we're getting close, I would have to imagine. Again, depending on alignment, so if you guys really want a scenic route.
Do we want to include anything about that crosswalk that would be in the neighborhood across the street? Like, how do we, when we're thinking of plans like this, do we have to get like Hennepin, not Hennepin County, well, yeah, it would be Hennepin County involved with what that might look like? Do you do a crosswalk there? Do you do pedestrian signs? Like,
That would also be part of the Three Rivers Trail because it goes through that Rush Creek.
okay, so they'd be responsible for figuring out what that looks like.
Assuming that they took it over.
Okay.
So that's another part of it.
Got it.
In your comment with the trails that you're gonna bring over, send over, however you wanna, all these notes you're taking, can we get the cost of paved versus wood chip trail?
I can ask if you
I
guys
would
would
just
like
be
that
curious.
difference.
That'd be awesome.
I guess where would the cutoff be to go from paved or bituminous to wood chip? And how do you want that transition to look? Because it might look a little wonky unless you're crossing at a street or
I mean,
something.
there's
So
one
it's
over in
sort of like going off
Hanover.
Oakdale onto Bechtold.
Plymouth does it.
Yeah.
Their wood chip trail.
do,
Yeah.
yeah.
it
A lot
doesn't
of
look
places in
bad.
Corcoran.
It doesn't look bad. Plymouth has a really nice, where it goes from like where the main, around their main Millennium Park. It's
Paved
all
to wood
paved.
chip to
And then in like the
gravel,
more,
So what?
wooded
what-
areas.
If it goes into the trees, that's where you could start the wood chips.
Yeah.
Right, because that's the more natural area. And then one other comment, I know we want to wrap this up, but that pond in the south, it's very angular. And I'm assuming that would not be that exact shape. Is that correct, or is this?
That's a very good question.
Because let's make it more circular if,
Yeah, kind of like the one up in the corner.
Let's get some egrets on there too.
they're expensive.
That's expensive.
So, I'm sorry, last question,
Yep,
maybe.
yep.
Where would you like the transition to be for the wood chip trail? Does it start?
Honestly, I think like anything that's in the really wooded natural area could be
so
wooded.
Outside of the pinwheel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I think I have everything I need. If you guys think of anything after the fact, feel free to shoot me an email.
Thank you all. Well done. Hard work, but you know, this is it. This is their chance.
Yep, it's important.
It is important.
New business? Any public comment opportunities?
If anyone would like to speak, you can use the raise hand function. You can raise your hand here. You can star 9. Seeing none, I think we can proceed.
Okay. Active planning applications for our information, questions or comments about any of those? How many items are there on that list?
This one was a little
19.
bigger than previous ones.
19 items. Well, it's much better than it was. It's been cleaned up significantly. It's really nice. It's a lot- All right, if you have a question, ask Jessica. You can send her an email if something pops up.
Truthfully, Natalie, our planner, would probably be a
Nan-
better reference.
Well, we'll see. She'll,
Or
Jess Beiser.
okay, all right. Yeah, don't ask, okay. Recreation Supervisor update, Jessica.
And apparently, we're still stuck on this one. Okay, so August is the busiest month as far as my job is concerned, so it has been chaotic and hectic, but only in the best way. Pictured up at the top is Night to Unite. You'll notice that a good portion of the people that are sitting here today are also in that photo. So we're estimating about 750, 800 people, somewhere in there, that attended Night to Unite. I helped coordinate it along with Pat Meister, our Public Works Superintendent, and Peter Eckenberg, which is one of our sergeants. So it does take up a lot of time, but it's super rewarding. People love it. We had 10 neighborhood parties. Like I said, 750, 800 people out at Public Works. I think the number was lower than previous years, but mostly because, I don't know if you guys were there, but it was very warm and humid and just icky, not great. In addition to that, I hosted a beanbag tournament at Country Days. That was successful. We had 16 teams. People seemed to really enjoy it. And then working on the City Park Master Plan with Stantec. Park reservations, so ball fields, pavilions, etc. And something I did want to note is social media. While this is on there every single month because I do coordinate the social media for the city, I don't know if you guys follow our Facebook and Twitter pages, but I did do a push on Park and Rec Month in July and really tried to highlight that the parks are open to all, because I know that at one point we had an issue of, is Wildflower public, is it private? I know that with HOAs it can get kind of confusing, so I did try and make it clear that our parks are open for use to everyone. So that was kind of my big thing that month.
That was a
Happy
great
Park and Rec
idea.
Month.
I liked seeing that. That was cool. You
cool.
highlighted some neat things.
So if you guys have anything, like I say every year, or every month, if you have anything that you think should be highlighted, I'd love to hear it. But that is my update as far as that's concerned.
Thank you. And the park, and Noah's update.
Yes, I have something for his too. He is not here tonight. Like I said, he canceled soccer tonight, which was unfortunate. Oh, some of you were here for that discussion earlier, but he did have to cancel soccer. I don't know if you guys are aware, but it rained really hard. So he ended up going home. We are starting to fall short on hours, so if I can have him attend soccer and help out with youth athletics, I would much rather have him spend his time doing that. While I think he would gain something from being here, it's a lot more useful, as far as I'm concerned, to have him at the parks. But he has been working on baseball a lot. That wrapped up. He wrapped up the spring season. He's also been working on the fall season and getting that ramped up. He had T-ball and coach pitch start this week. Machine pitch starts next week. He did the rosters. He did the scheduling. He did it all. It was beautiful. I loved it. Soccer's wrapping up next week. They have 2 makeup nights. He's handing out medals. He's been on site to help answer questions. I still have pretty good connections with people in the program, and they have spoken very highly of him. They think he's been wonderful to have there. I think he's wonderful to have there because then I don't have to be there as much. He also helped out with Night to Unite. He helped with some of the setup and some of the coordination beforehand. He did have something else he had to attend that evening, so he wasn't able to be there, which was unfortunate, but he got to see everything kind of come to be, so that was good.
Thank you. City Council report.
So I will try to pick out the things that I think might be interesting to you. If I miss something and you want comment, you do have both Tom and I here to add in for anything else. So on June 23rd, we had a council work session to discuss ideas for helping to ensure that we retain our position as Minnesota's safest city through helping to retain and recruit police officers. We also had the formal approval of the master plan for the Three Rivers Park District Diamond Lake Regional Trail that as we have referred to many times, especially me, I guess, in the course of this meeting. We talked through budget priorities and got initial guidance on the levy and provided some feedback to staff about potential areas for some modifications. We're looking forward to seeing how those get revised going forward. We had another work session talking about the water supply system, and a additional item later on also dealing with the water supply system and the architecture for the water treatment plant. We're trying to steer it towards something that can be expanded to accommodate additional capacity without looking like it's been kludged together over decades where different sections don't match, which was a bit of a challenge, but I think we landed on a design that is probably going to be able to do that. Hopefully, we can make it look a little bit agricultural as well, so we're talking about what features can we add so that it doesn't just look like a generic block, and add some more features and character to it. We also are continuing to march down, hopefully, state approval of a grant to provide broadband throughout the rest of the city. There's about 500 homes that do not have high-speed internet today. Through the tireless efforts of Mayor Tom McKee, he found a couple different opportunities to partner where the city contribution would be less than, what, 100,000?
It's about 108.
2% of the total project cost, 2.5%.
So the key there is getting some money from the state, and we're hoping to hear from that agency in the fall. So hopefully by the end of this year, we'll know. Hopefully that one is going to be a.
And the 108 is from ARPA funds too, so
Yeah.
win-win.
So that's very exciting for a lot of folks. We had another work session to talk about city code updates, this time specific to how we handle planned unit developments for anybody who likes to follow the planning commission. We get a lot of PUDs. Some of us have been arguing that we need to change that system for a while, so we're looking at how can we structure the PUD process to give staff more leverage as they're negotiating ahead of time and give the council a little bit more leverage as they're negotiating with developers in the moment in the council meetings. Tavera 4th edition ended up getting approved. We talked about that a little bit earlier, so that'll be some park dedication funding. We also had a relatively brief discussion on THC regulation. Apparently, the state has modified state law, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to avoid becoming a mecca. So we're looking forward to some insight from John Thames at the next meeting to figure out what that will look like for us. Did I miss anything important?
No, well, yeah, Ken Guthrie stopped by. Talk about watershed. So, yeah. City's lucky to have Ken Guthrie representing the watershed, representing Corcoran on the watershed commission.
Definitely.
Really an important place for cities like us who are right near sea level. So he does a nice job. He really does, yeah.
He does. He's very passionate about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, he is,
Yeah.
yeah.
He makes it interesting.
He does indeed. All right, Garden Club report. I have not yet, I'm supposed to write up enough of a history of the Garden Club so that we can be listed as an official Corcoran-sponsored organization so that we can be on the Corcoran Facebook page, and I have not done it. But the Garden Club did meet this weekend and toured some of our gardens, and we had a very good time. And we had a new person. So, yeah, so that's all good. Park Dedication Fund.
Can we do anything with this money while it sits here? Maybe you guys know.
How do you mean?
It's
Wait.
$3 million in cash. It's been there for years, and it goes up and down, obviously, but we've been building it up. Even 1% would be $30,000. There's got to be something where we can put it in, like,
Okay.
bonds that are a year or less, like very low risk, very high grade, and you still get, especially as interest rates rise.
Just not Bitcoin.
We're somewhat limited in what we can do with investments with the city's funds, but we certainly look into other options with.
Yeah, I mean, even a bank product, and you could get an insured product, with rates going, it didn't make sense to look into it when everything's 0%, but.
And generally, right now, our interest earned on there is some interest earnings that I think need to, I'm not seeing them listed in here, but I could work with our finance team.
Yeah, I'd just
There's
be
some-
curious. I mean, there's
I
some
think
value
there's
there
some,
that we're not
Definitely
capturing.
interest earnings that we have. We generally have CDs and other funds that we put our cash into, so I can see
Okay.
if those have been,
Yeah, I'd be curious what our options are and then weigh those out, given the current rate environment. Thank you.
Other business? Liaison calendar, everybody on board with that?
I assume that the second meeting in November is actually on the 22nd. That's the week of Thanksgiving. That would be on Thanksgiving. I'm assuming we're not.
yes, we're not allowed to host city meetings
The
It's on-
21st?
It's on the 21st?
Yeah.
Okay.
on a Monday.
The 8/25, I'll be coming back into town the day before, so I should be able to make it, but if anyone has that open, maybe I'll text you or something just in case, but as of right now, I'm planning on being there.
You can also attend virtually.
Yeah, right, yes, that helps a lot.
Yes, that's what I, got some nice Bluetooth headphones.
All right, any other business? All right, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
People today.
Further discussion? All in favor?
I
Opposed? Thank you all.
was gonna say it, but I was like,
Recording
we need a
stuff.
second. I-
Every once in a while, you guys get like that, too.